Bang! Neeves. I'm Jared. My lovely wife Kara is out catching mermaids, and today we are going to talk about edges. And we're going to talk about how to identify certain things on edges, how to test your edge, how to check your edge, so on and so forth. I have a bunch of different categories we are going to go through, so let's get to it. But we are going to be doing a live later, and hopefully Kara will be back in time for that. So if this video gets up in time, hopefully you guys join us for the live later tonight. Okay, so first I want to talk about the finger test on how to test an edge with your finger. There are a few different ways to do this. Now I'm going to show a couple wrong ways. Now a lot of people, you'll see they do this. Now that doesn't really do anything going to the side like that. And if you're a professional sharpener or something like that, obviously you're going to be able to test an edge a little more accurately like that because you're so used to it. But for the most part, it doesn't work out, and this is why. Because the teeth on a knife, say this would be the belly of a knife, they're usually going at an angle like a saw blade. Now a factory finish is more straight up and down, but when you rub to the side like that, just like this, you're just, I mean, you're not really snagging the teeth, and you're not really checking anything. So a more proper way to do it, if you're going to use your thumb, would be to roll your thumb on the edge and go against the teeth. Now when I do this, basically what I'm doing is I'm pushing my thumb into it, just less as hard as I'm doing it right there, but just gently. And what you're letting your skin do is you're letting your skin snag the teeth, and you're testing how toothy it is, how much bite it has, whether it has bite or not. Now another way is you do the 3-finger test, and you're basically taking your fingers and rolling them like that. So I would go like this, and it doesn't look like that's what I'm doing because I'm doing it very gently. Now it looks like I'm just touching, but I'm not. I'm actually letting it snag just a little bit, and I'm testing to see how much snag it has against my skin. And or like you can kind of like set it down and kind of move a little bit, like so. I'm basically going like this and moving like that. You just can't tell because it's so gentle of a movement, just to see how much snags. Now a factory edge is going to be a little different, and we're going to get into more factory edges in just a little bit. Okay, so now another way, which is a very, very accurate way to test for a good edge, and especially to check for chips and stuff like that, say if you've used your knife, or even after sharpening, or even if you just bought a knife, you know, from the factory. You take your nail and you rub it up the edge. Now you shouldn't feel any bumps or anything. If you feel any bumps or anything, that's a chip or an inconsistency in the edge. You want to basically feel like glass. Now the toothier the edge, it might feel slightly rough, or what it'll feel like is basically like it's cutting into your nail because the teeth are so big, it's kind of cutting into it. But even with a little bit more of a toothier edge, you still should be able to slide it right up and it feel like basically you're rubbing on glass. A good edge should be nice and smooth. And like I said, if it's toothy, it might bite into your nail a little bit more, and that's what you'll kind of feel. You'll feel it kind of biting into your nail a little bit more than, say, a very fine edge, you know, a less toothy edge. Now, there's also the burr test. We're going to get into some more of these knives in a second, but the burr test is where you take your finger and you're basically rubbing just like this right over the edge, and you want to go all the way up it. Now it should be nice and smooth if it's a good edge. And what you're checking for is this. Now you see that little hang up? Now if it's nice and smooth, it's because your finger's just going right over the edge like this or like this. This would be the apex, this would be the blade. So basically you're looking at it like this. But when there's a burr, you'll feel it. So by rubbing, you can tell if there's a burr. If it's a little, you get a little snag on your finger. So that's a good way to test if your edge is proper, if it's not proper, so on and so forth. If your apex is good, if it's got a burr. Now the paper test. We're going to do this really quick because this is not the best test because all paper is different. They're all different thicknesses. Usually I do it on receipt paper because it's so thin and it's a little harder to cut than thicker paper. But what you're listening for is how loud and how easily it goes through. So you'll see some people will cut S shapes and stuff like that, but you want to listen to how loud it is and how easily it slides through. Now that one, that's a little bit more of an aggressive edge. Now when you get to a little bit more of a finer edge, it's a little more quieter. Now this is kind of in between those. Goes through very easily. And also how thin an edge is. It's also, you know, it's kind of a hard way to test unless if you're used to doing, you know, the paper test all the time. Now here is a mirror edge, and then we'll check a damaged edge. Now it's a very fine grit, that's why. Now if you listen really closely, or if you watch, you're going to hear this one start to snag right in this area. Now this is where you can test to see if you have hang-ups in your edge. Did you hear that? That little chip in there is and we're going to show that chip under the microscope here in a second. But you can hear it. Now, like I said, paper's not the best way to test your edge. And you can also try to see how thin of a strip you'll be able to get, or if you can make the cuts nice and straight, because a dull knife is not going to be able, sorry about the focus, to get these little curly cues. Trying to do this under the camera. But basically, just trying to get little thin strips. Let me get one with eyesight. Doesn't matter. Or some people like to do that. See if they can do like basically push cuts. Because you can't really do that with the dull edge. Get all these little curly cues with push cuts. But a lot of people try to see how thin they can make a cut. Anyways, paper's not the best thing to test with. Eye test. Okay, so to the naked eye, this is, I'm trying to start saying the knives a little bit more. This is the Ganzo FH12. Very, very cool knife. Okay, so to the naked eye, this is the Kaiser T1. Amazing, amazing knife. Okay, so let's zoom in here so it's a little more like the naked eye. Now, what you're wanting to see, use something to point with. This might not be the best one to do it with. Let me get a different knife really quick. Something with a little more teeth in it. There we go. Okay, so what you're looking for is the teeth or the grip pattern to go from the top of the bevel. Sorry, I'm shaking. Top of the bevel to the edge. Straight lines. And if you look, you can see all the little tiny lines going like this, like in a scratch pattern. So you want to see them consistently going. So you see right here, there's a little bit of an inconsistency right there. And I know what that's from. But you want to see it, all the lines being nice and perfect and straight. Something right there. Now, you want it to be even on both sides. At least it's nice when it's even on both sides. But just getting the consistent pattern is almost a little more important. Now, when we use a magnifying glass, let's get another edge because I want to show you one that's a little more improper. So you can use, let me zoom out, any type of magnifying glass to do this. There's lots of different ones. I have a lot of them. I got this one that really zooms in close. I think like 60 times, and it's got a light and everything. It's only a few dollars. Excuse me, a few dollars on Amazon. Let me show you this other one though that might be a little more easier for us to use. I think this thing was like 10 bucks on Amazon. It's 40 times. Oh, wrong side. That's the little tool to take out the battery. But this gives us about 40, I think it's 40. Yeah, 40 times. And then it's got a couple different lights. So let's check out one of these edges really quick. We'll check this one out because I want to show you something on it. And then with this also, you can back out a little bit more. With the other one, you can't really, you got to get right up close, and it's very close. You know, I might have to go this direction. Now, you see how the grip pattern's a little different right there? I'm going to show you a couple more, and I'm going to tell you what that means. Let's go up the blade. See, it's nice and consistent right there. Now, if you really look right here, you see it kind of looks like there's a line, the way the light's hitting it, going side to side right there. Now, what that is that is a change of angle. Let's try to get in the other side, because now if you look, you're going to notice on the edge, it looks like there's like almost like a line going this way. There's a couple of them. I think there's 2 different lines on top of each other. It's kind of hard to see unless the light hits it just right. But when you're looking at that, what that is that is a change of angle. Okay, so let's look. Okay, see the 2 lines right there? How they're kind of on top of each other, the way the light's hitting it? Okay, so what that is that's a little bit of a change of angle. So you'll notice back here, it's a little more, come on, focus. Anyways, what that is that's a change of angle. Back here, the grip pattern gets a little more wompy, but now this doesn't change how sharp it is really, but we're just identifying what that is, because to the naked eye, you almost can't even see this without zooming in. But those little lines, like if you just look at it with the naked eye, you can see it maybe, but not really that good. So that's not even that big of a deal because it's so consistent. You know what? I bet you if we zoom in, we'll be able to see it with our naked eye. Yeah, see how it's like almost like a shadow? Like when I move it, you see right here and right here. Two little lines. It's almost like a shadow when I move it around. Now all that is that's when I was sharpening, the angle changed ever so slightly, almost to the point where you can't even tell. But yet this is a very, very sharp knife, and this is a very nice edge. So it's not really that big of a deal, but that's what that looks like when you start changing the angle. And the harder you do it and the more you do it when sharpening, the more prevalent it'll be. Now let's look at what a chip looks like. We're going to look at a couple more edges, but let's look at what a chip looks like. Okay, so to the naked eye, there's a chip right towards the tip. You can probably see it. It's right there. But this is a very nice edge. Let's zoom in. Very, very nice edge. Nice grip pattern. Nice good angle. And then there's that chip. Let's look at it with the magnifying glass. Let me zoom back out. Oh, the light. I highly recommend getting a loupe, a jeweler's loupe. Now you see that little chip right there? That's what an edge that's starting to wear is going to start looking like. This is a fresh edge, but I did use it a little bit, and it nicked the tip a little bit. Now the rest of the edge looks very nice. But to the naked eye, this is a very beautiful edge. It looks really good, and it is incredibly sharp, especially with the finger test. Very, very nice, and it's nice and glassy. But right here I feel some hiccups, and then right there. So it was nice and glassy, but I used it a little bit. Now we can't even pick up the little spots right here with the magnifying glass. I've already tried, or with the naked eye, but I can pick it up with my fingernail. So that's why the fingernail test is so good. It'll actually let you test your edge where you can't even see it zoomed in. I don't even think we could see it with the 60, those little spots, but they're right there, and then right there, and right there. So that's why the fingernail test is so good. And if you catch those little things nice and early, you'll be able to just strop them out. If they're too big, though, you are going to have to either hone your edge, or you're going to have to resharpen. Okay, so this was the 940-1 that we just looked at. This is an edge off of I first used diamonds, and then I went to a ceramic medium, and it's a very, very nice edge, incredibly sharp. To the naked eye, it's actually pretty shiny, but not crazy shiny. Let's check out some mirror edges and different stones finishes, and also a convex edge. Okay, so let's do a mirror edge first. Then we'll go back to, we'll do a couple mirrors, and we'll go back to the other ones. Okay, so this is a nice mirror edge. You can see it. But now when we zoom in, let's use the 60 now. Where's it at? Where did I set it down at? But see the grip pattern? It's still there. Now, that when you get down to completely where you can't even see that through the magnifying glass, then you basically don't have no more bite left, unless if the apex is laid back very, very far and the edges, and then you're basically just feeling the metal. It's kind of hard to explain, but either way, that's a mirrored edge up close. Let's check out one more. This is a 5000 grit finish, nice and mirrory. Okay, let's wipe it and then check it out up close. See how this one looks. This one is off of a Nanowa Superstone. Let's look at it with this first. Oh yeah, you can already see it right there. Now that I don't think is, yeah, I guess that would be a little bit of a change of angle, but I really think that that might have something to do with the stropping, because I used a some diamond spray for the strap, but you see how you still see the grip pattern though, even though to the naked eye you can't. Let's see if we can zoom in and see it up with the camera. We might be able to with this one. Oh yeah. But when you're just looking at it like this, I mean, you can read off of this edge. See that? And this thing has a lot of bite to it with the finger test, and it's very glassy. All these edges are pretty much glassy. Even this one, nice and smooth and glassy. It has a lot of bite. I like my edges to have some bite. Okay, now here is one. This is a, this one's a 6, or I think an 800 grit diamond finish. And you can see the grip pattern's very prevalent. Even with the naked eye, you can see that grip pattern. It's kind of my favorite edges, the ones that look like that you can see the bite. But very, very cool. Let's zoom in really quick. Then we'll get to a convex edge. So it works better this way. Very nice. Okay. Now, I put a convex edge on this one. It's kind of a mirror convex edge. With the naked eye, it's pretty polished, pretty shiny, but it's not a complete mirror, but it's very sharp. And a convex edge is a little bit stronger of an edge. There we go. Very nice. Should we look at it with the magnifying glass? And that is a convex edge. Now, a convex edge, the difference is a V grind is like this, perfectly like this. Now, a convex edge is more like this. So it adds a little bit more strength behind the actual edge. A V grind straight, convex like that. Okay, now let's look at some factory edges. Now the difference between a factory edge is almost always going to have a grip pattern that's straight up and down, if you'll notice this, because it's done with a belt. And the belt is running up and down. So this is a very nice factory edge. You see the grip pattern running straight up and down compared to, let's say, a grip pattern like this that's running at an angle. See how the top one's running at an angle and then the bottom one's running straight up and down. The edge will always show the thicker and thinner parts of the edge with, or of the grind by the edge. So wherever the bevel is thicker and then it gets thinner, that's because the grind is thinner there. Let me show you on this custom. And you want to watch for that because that's always going to come out in your sharpening. Now, if you look at this, see how this edge is thicker right here, and then it gets down to thinner? That's because of the grind. So when they ground it right here in this specific area, that's thinner than right here. Now, that'll always come out in your sharpening. So as you're sharpening it, if this is one angle that you sharpen it at, it's going to get thicker here and it'll be thinner here because the thickness in the steel is different. Now, the only way you can match that is if you change the angle in those two specific areas to match itself. So that becomes difficult. So a lot of times with factory grinds, you want to watch for that if you're wanting a consistent edge. You know, you can't always ask for perfectness or for it to be perfect, but if it's all over the place, then when you sharpen it, your edge is going to get thicker and thinner in different areas. So it's something to kind of watch out for. You know, it's pretty common in like certain knives. So certain knives are going to be, thinner in some areas. Like usually the belly gets a little bit thicker, then the tip gets thinner, or the belly is thinner and then the tip is thicker, depending on the grind of the knife. But if it's too crazy, you know, it's definitely going to show when you sharpen it. All right, guys, I think that about does it. This video is way longer than I wanted it to be. Peace.